Hello and welcome to the Carbitrage Podcast, episode 316. I'm Eric Berger, joined as always by my co-host, Ryan Sinitsky. Hello.
Hey, that's me. I've got a Hams and I got a burrito. I'm a happy boy.
I have a mostly empty Colorado Kool-Aid, and that's that. Before we dig into our first topic, which is actually going to be a little bit of a digression topic, patreon.com/Carbitrage. On the super cool handcrafted website, you'll find 3 open-ended levels of support starting at just 99 cents a month to help us pay hosting costs and beer. Patreon.com/Carbitrage. So on the show, this wasn't even written down yet, but Ryan and I often dialogue before the show.
Yeah, we warm up.
And we started talking about something very vehicle related. And Ryan's like, why the hell aren't we talking about this on the show?
Yeah, well, we were talking about how, like, you were driving through Iowa on the interstate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, flyover states like that, like the interstate, that's where you go get a ticket. Because, like, the police just sit there and, like, because nobody's stopping in Iowa. There's nothing to do there.
Right.
So
if you're getting fuel or driving.
If you're on the interstate, you're probably from Minnesota or elsewhere. Missouri, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say,
yeah.
I should know that because of the Waffle House drive, right?
Yeah. But so the thing is I mentioned, like, those states are actually a lot more enjoyable to use the side roads. It's next to the highway.
Yeah.
And, like, everybody in the world has GPS these days. You can just click avoid freeways, avoid interstates.
Yep.
And have your directions. And you can usually get across the entire state without using the interstate. And as you mentioned, the cops don't ever bother because that's where normal, people drive. Like, it's 55.
The locals.
Yeah, it's 55 on the side road for, like, the highway.
Yeah.
And the locals drive 75, and nobody gets hassled.
Correct.
And, like, that's the way to do it. And you actually get a much better experience of the state that way.
I agree. I mean, yeah, you get to go multiple directions. You get to see stuff.
Yeah.
You get to maybe see a little bit of topography.
Yeah, like, when I was in Alabama, they have an interstate that goes directly from Birmingham to Atlanta, obviously. And we went there because I had my parents in the car on the way there. We took them, but on the way back, it was just Jana and I, because my parents were driving back. They had an earlier flight.
Sure.
And so they were driving back with my aunt and uncle. So Jana and I, on our way back, instead of taking the interstate, took the highway. And it was absolutely lovely because the highway that was built that goes from roughly Birmingham to Atlanta was made during the 1800s. It was a wagon road.
Okay.
And then it just got upgraded to highway. A highway is a road that goes across state lines.
Okay.
That's what a highway is. That's the difference. A county road is a street that goes between two cities and ends within the county.
Okay.
And then once it goes outside of the county, if it goes outside the county, it is a highway. My bad.
And then interstate is.
And then interstate is.
Okay.
Yes.
That was going to be
my.
my.
I got that
That's
mixed
fine.
up.
I was going to ask the clarification. I'm like, okay, so
but
what's.
It's two highways that are effectively a shared highway. That was the main way to get there, and it is a way better road because it's like they didn't, like, clear cut the country to, like, make a flat straight road. It's got corners. It's got elevation changes. It's like a road in Europe.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. And as I said to, like, quite literally everybody, Alabama is the best state in the nation as long as you don't talk to a single person that lives there. Like,
I'm inclined to agree because that was really close to where I went driving even just a few months ago. And
yeah,
it was spectacular.
It's a wonderful part of the country to drive in. Just don't talk to people there. So,
and we drove side roads all the way up and back.
Well, I mean,
when we did that too.
For most of our listeners are in the upper Midwest. Like, Wisconsin's similar to Alabama, where the side roads in Wisconsin are incredible.
Yeah.
Like, you find those back roads that are around the Mississippi or St. Croix rather. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely fantastic.
Any body of water, really.
You go to Wisconsin, you get off the highway in Hudson, and you drive down to Prescott.
Yep.
Along the river. That's an incredible drive.
Yeah. That's where everyone goes. And when it's nice out, there's that little parking lot just across from I think it is Prescott, on the Minnesota
Prescott,
side.
yeah.
And then everyone convenes there, and then they drive the QQ, OO, all the double letters.
Oh, they're so good. The double letter roads are so good.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. I'm actually working on a mining hosting facility with some friends that's on that main road.
Oh,
so every time we have to go visit the site, I'm like, I got to take a fun car then.
Yeah. Well, I guess the 1M needs to have its battery charged.
Exactly. Buy the alternator.
Yes, buy the alternator. It needs to have I don't want flat spots on the tires.
I thought you were going to say, I don't want flat spots in the battery from the truck.
That's true, yeah. So you don't want that either.
I'm sorry.
Doesn't exist. Well, you don't want that either.
Hey, I've made definite flimsy excuses to take
Yeah,
cars
why
out
not?
before.
Sure.
It's fine.
You just need an excuse to drive it.
Although not right now, right? Because road salt and snow.
No, but that actually is a good segue because I want to talk about something because, the 1M is definitely the hot hatch of, like, the 1 Series.
Oh, absolutely. Even though it's not a hatch, but yes, yeah.
The more I've been thinking about it, the more I like the sporty model of a car that isn't quite the hot hatch.
Okay.
I like to call it a warm hatch.
So like okay, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, like a non-turbo 500 Sport or the Mini 1, the non-turbo Mini.
Yeah.
EF Civic Si is technically that because there was the SIR in Japan and it was designed to have the SIR version. So the SIR previously had come out the generation before. And so they was like, absolutely there was going to be either a ZC or a B16 version of the SI, and the car was designed with that in mind. So the SI, right below the SIR, was the warm hatch version. That's the one we got, and it's absolutely fantastic. The Mark IV GTI, that's not an R32.
Yeah, the 1.8 and the VR6. Yeah.
Absolutely, like that is peak Volkswagen. Was the Mark III, Mark IV GTIs. Like they got it super right, and then
Corrado
it was
too, frankly.
and then it went downhill from there.
Yeah, that's true.
But what I really like about them is like they take a little bit of tinkering to get them like really good, but like it's not like major stuff. It's not like you're having to like completely swap like drive lines or anything. It's just like
Well, they're fun to mod too. Typically, they're more reliable because they're not stressed quite as hard.
They aren't stressed, and it's like you just got to put like put like maybe an intake on it or like some sway bars. There's usually some sort of manufacturer tuning option. Like the Mini 1 had a ton of John Cooper Works, like suspension work stuff that you did. Like Taylor Finger actually did that in his Mini 1. Like totally opened my eyes to them. And like EF Civics, like you can, sway bars huge, and then you put an exhaust and intake on it, make it actually sound good. And like when I say an exhaust, I'm not saying like eBay fart cannon, but like a Tanabe exhaust or HKS Sport, one Apexi World Sport 2. There's a number of exhausts that you can put on a Honda that make them sound good that don't sound like fart cans.
They are rare and they cost money, but yeah, they absolutely do.
Well,
exist.
and that's the thing. What's funny is like people are like, oh, it costs money. Like, yeah, it does cost money relative to a $100 eBay exhaust, but like the most expensive exhaust that is like over the counter available for a Honda Civic is a Fujitsubo, and that is $1,100.
I like the term over the counter describing
like as opposed to
I know, I gotcha.
but like the one that like you can just like go buy is a Fujitsubo.
You don't need a prescription for this exhaust.
Exactly. You don't need to like go to a shop. Like you can just go buy them, put it on. But like that's like a titanium like exhaust like that's
probably made in Japan still.
Yes, it is. Like handmade in Japan, and it's like the end all be all exhaust for that car, and it sounds okay. But like
I picture the jig that was made in like 1993 still being
yes,
made for that
it's literally that.
same muffler.
Like, and it's like Fujitsubo like has like super high build quality standards. Like they make stuff for like Ducatis and stuff usually.
Sure.
And they make a few car exhausts for cars that are really popular in Japan. But yeah, like if $1,100 is your absolute top end for an exhaust on a car, the World Sport 2s, the HKS Sports, the Tanabe medallions, $400 or $500. Like they're very, very affordable. And like I have to mention that because like if you look at like a Fiat 500, like a Regazzone exhaust, is like $700 for an entry level. Like that's just silly for a car that's like effectively the same as a Civic.
Well, not only that, but just like the exhaust. So the difference in factory exhaust between like a Civic Si and like a Fiat 500 Sport Turbo or a Barth, there's a pretty significant difference in how those things are set up from the factory. But there's really not
a Sport Turbo does not sound bad.
No,
you can just a Regazzone adds like I think like 10 horsepower or something, like if that.
But like the hangers are about the same. The length is about the same. Like, there's really no reason it needs to be a difference in cost.
Yeah.
I think it's just the fact that they can make so many more of the Civic ones.
They can make more.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying. Like the warm hatch, I think, is just like a really good car. And like you said, it's like way easier to live with. Yeah. And like,
well, it's fun to mod because it's not already done.
Yeah, and also like you're not immediately going to jail in it. Like you're like the 1M, like you can get yourself into very big trouble very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But like a 135i with some mods on it, like you can still enjoy that quite a bit without getting into trouble.
Well,
and
you-
then also
you
you can enjoy it, period, because it's not like a limited edition collector's item.
Man, I wish we got 128 hatches here because that would
That
be a
would've been
good
perfect,
answer.
yeah.
That is a phenomenal car.
I think maybe next episode we should do like a $6,000 warm hatch
Or, like,
challenge.
the best drivers base models or
Like
something
if
that.
if we had like $6,000 to buy a warm hatch today, what would we do? So,
Okay.
yeah, stay tuned for next episode. We might go ahead and do that.
I think we'll probably do that.
Yeah. All right.
Sounds
Anyway.
like fun. Anyway,
Yes.
so I was caveating again on
Yeah.
the main thing we were just talking about. When I did my trip to Iowa, I use road trips as an excuse to just blow through my other podcasts that I subscribe to.
That's
'Cause
understandable, yeah.
Very, very rarely do I actually sit down during the day and just listen to a podcast. And one of my favorites is the Carmudgeon Show with Jason
yeah.
Camisa. Yep. They were
Love that
talking
show.
about
Yeah.
a future Revelations episode that hasn't come out yet, but they were talking about Ferruccio Lamborghini and basically the EB-110 Bugatti. And I had no idea that car was Ferruccio's brainchild. So it was actually folks that were pulled off the Diablo
Really?
team with him, and they didn't own the naming rights, and the only reason it didn't end up being like Ferruccio's actual car with a different brand. Obviously, he doesn't own the Lamborghini name because that was owned by Chrysler at the time. But the whole reason that didn't become a Lamborghini product was because he refused to put his own money into the project. So it was
I love
actually
that. That's hilarious.
but it did get picked up with enough interest, and
Yeah.
it was. I wrote down the name. It was the Dower Cars was actually the company that.
I'm familiar with Dower. Yeah, because Dower also made Le Mans cars.
Yes,
they
they
did
did.
a lot of like
Yep.
Porsche stuff. I think.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge club
Yeah.
racing company, everything like that. So they did all the development on the car, and only in the last minute, basically, did they buy the naming rights to the defunct Bugatti name and staple that on the car. But all of the actual development team for this car, the EB-110, came all the way from the 350 GT, the Mira, the Countach, the early Diablo before Gandini's
Yeah.
design got kind of mulled over. But yeah, the EB-110 is a Lamborghini.
I am so bummed that the EB-110 didn't like become more.
I know.
Like that's what a Bugatti should be.
Agreed.
The Volkswagen Bugatti is like just not, because like a Bugatti is a actual brand. It was a race car.
I was going to say their ethos, yeah.
Yeah, there was a race car for the street, and they occasionally made a luxury model. Like a Bugatti is just a pre-war Ferrari. Yeah, you can hit it. It's just
Thank you,
yeah,
sir.
it's just a pre-war Ferrari. Like, and the modern Bugatti just like they make impressive things, and it's like the Veyron didn't really do it for me, but like they've done some stuff later where I've been like, that's actually kind of an interesting, cool object.
Well, a lot of the exercises that Bugatti has done under Piech, I mean, they have been impressive engineering exercises. So I mean,
Yeah.
that component does kind of
Yeah,
hark back
that's-
to the Bugatti name. But I agree with you, and that's the perfect, like, throwback to why that team, the Lamborghini team, working on this was so great. Because in the '60s, it was all a bunch of people in their 20s, essentially
Yeah.
working after hours on extremely short timetables, and they only had the best, newest, brightest technology.
Yeah.
So like the Ferrari, to your point, of the pre-war, even post-war, they were still
Yeah.
4-speed transmissions. They were single overhead cam.
Yeah.
Well, Lamborghini's like,
that's-
well, why the hell wouldn't we just have a 9,500 RPM 4-cam V12?
Yeah,
Because it's better tech. 5-speed, better tech.
Well, also, like those older Ferraris, like you say, like they're 4 speeds and they're single cam, like, but that's also if you look at what Formula One was in like 1948, that's exactly what Formula One was. Is either that or some like ginormous like V12 that is just the weight of an entire car in of itself and it can't turn. So
yeah, but aero engines.
yeah, well, I see more like the Third Reich Grand Prix cars that were. They
God.
weren't aero engines, but it's like the Auto Union like V16s
Sure.
and stuff, and the Mercedes V12.
Tech taken from that in
Yes.
the same scale.
Exactly.
Put into an early- yeah, that's true.
But like post-war, it was really just like those leftover pre-war racers, and then like single cam V8s that were. The design was more to be efficient, and like efficiency is not like fuel economy, but efficiency was like how do we get the most power out of a smaller package? Because what had happened between 1940 or 1939 and 1945 is you went from race cars being occasionally fuel injected to the arms race of World War II really just absolutely blowing up what piston engines could do.
Right.
And that's why you saw such a massive shift pre-war versus post-war, is because you had basically 5 years of the entire production, like the entire GDP of countries devoted to making a better airplane, which used a piston engine.
You have mentioned, it may have even been last episode, where the amount, of evolution that happened in piston engine technology over that like 5-6 year period of time was more than a generational leap.
So if you
the density from like the beginning of the war to the end of the war, I think you said it was like
when
doubled.
you at the beginning of World War II, carburetors were still standard fare on airplanes. And that would create a problem if you're in a negative G. So if you're in a dive, like that would be a big
altitude compensation.
Yes,
like there's a lot of problems
tons
with
of
carburation
problems,
in the air.
icing over, things like that, which is actually a real thing, and that crashed a lot of airplanes. But like then they switched over to fuel injection, and then that made a huge change. And then not just like fuel injection, but just like how do we design intake ports? How big does an exhaust need to be? Like things like that. Like
let's engineer a flow bench.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, those things were never done prior to that.
Right.
So that's why I find like pre-war versus post-war, mid-war, or very, very early or very, very late pre-war, I find super interesting for like what they were able to like come up with, because the very late pre-war cars, you were seeing like most cars were still kind of like, flathead, whatever, just like 1930s technology. But you'd occasionally get a weird car where it's like, oh man, this car is made in like Eastern Europe. And like there was a lot of like, air benches or flow benches and like wind tunnels and things like that.
That's where all the parts suppliers are. And they're like, wait.
And then like you would occasionally just get like a random people's car that's extremely cool, like Tatras and stuff like that.
Oh, they're sweet.
Yeah, like just like.
But then the Type 35, and that thing was ancient.
Yes.
But like the tech in that car,
that's exactly the thing. Is like the
incredible.
Bugatti Type 35 was doing the stuff that became standard during World War II, and it's like aluminum inline 8, and like that inline 8 worked because they didn't just have 3 mains. It was like, I think it was a 5-main engine.
It probably
ends, centers, and then 2. Yeah, it's a 5-man.
I gotcha.
But like they were actually able to do stuff that wasn't done until very much so later, and that's why I think.
And it shows, because you look into the hood of a Type 35, it's literally just looks like somebody had a Bridgeport in their garage, and
it's like just Trig made a race car.
Exactly, it's just hewn from a solid block of aluminum.
But like that's the thing is like,
and it's incredible.
Also, you just made an entire engine out of aluminum in pre-Depression Europe.
Right.
Like, that's pretty cool.
But the scale of it, too. That's what I mean. That was probably one of my highlights from the Revs Institute when I visited, seeing a Type 35 up close, because the scale of everything, the downsizing of components, and still getting the same or better power output in the war. I mean, like you said, Bugatti was doing all that beforehand, but the war taught us how to mass produce and to make everything cheaper.
You could make a handful of Type 35s in 1932. Right. You could make production Type 35s in 1952.
Correct.
Like, that's the difference in what you were able to figure out during the war.
Yeah, at a tenth the cost, with probably even better performance somehow.
But yeah, no, the history of the 90s Bugattis I find much more interesting than the later ones. I mean, I'm happy that they exist. Like, I like ridiculous things in the world, and they certainly check that box. They're not my jam, but hey, that's cool. This is definitely my jam, though.
I always loved the EB-110 as a kid. That was like the first model I got of a hypercar. I'm like, heck yeah. Actually, that might even just be a supercar, but
no, I'd consider that a hypercar. It's like
I guess it is a quad turbo.
It's a classic hypercar. It's like you had the McLaren F1, you had that.
True.
Because what I consider a hypercar is like. I think actually the F40 would be the first hypercar, even possibly. Well, no.
Well, it's super lightweight. I mean, that was really weight focused. Maybe not.
Because a hypercar, it's because a F40 is still terrible to live with, but you could live with a EB-110 or an F1.
Early Diablos are awful, and they were only engineered to do 200 miles an hour. So I think that's probably the first
hypercar.
hypercar.
No, because the early Diablo was still a supercar, is still just a response to a Ferrari.
True.
So. And the thing is, like, a hypercar, you have to be able to live with it. Like, that's a car you can daily drive that can go 200 miles an hour. That's what I consider a hypercar. Is like, it can't, like, obviously not like a Macan that goes 200. Like, that would
the
not be
Murcielago might have birthed the hypercar then.
Well, that came out after those.
Right.
So it'd be probably the EB-110 and the F1. Those are the first generation hypercars, I would say.
I don't think I've ever like seen a segment on somebody like living with an EB-110 for a road test because I'd be curious. But you're right. The McLaren is phenomenal.
But like just like looking at them and like how they're put together and how the interior is, like they look like a relatively reasonable car. A XJ220 would also be.
Yeah.
That's another first generation hypercar.
Even a 959 maybe, but XJ220 is a good one.
Well, 959 was still just like that. Only went, that was the kind of a Ferrari-ish sort of thing.
True.
So
but easy to live with.
XJ220 is better than a 959. So I'd say the XJ220 I'd throw in there is like maybe even a quasi hypercar.
God, what a great car.
Yeah, that was a very cool era of vehicles. A very not cool era of vehicles is today.
I mean, I agree with you,
yes,
but
because
damn it, I'm fine.
You know how all of our cars are connected to the internet today?
I sure do.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that they're sending your data tracking to insurance providers, as everybody assumed. Well, all the conspiracy theorists, tin hat people on like George and Ari and like Coast to Coast AM were like, they're sending all my data from my car to the to my insurance provider.
To the cloud.
Yeah, and actually, no, they are. And it's like it's like having a progressive snapshot in your car, but you cannot turn it off.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Am I at least getting better? No, I'm not going to get better rates because I drive like a burrito.
Also, no, you never will because you're going to get your standard rate or worse. And the future sucks and I hate it here.
I was just talking to Peter Francis this last week. He's got a Model Y and he got like honey-dicked into Tesla insurance. And they use all of the vehicle data all the time. Yeah. And anytime there is a person or a vehicle in front of you and you don't like go super early on the brakes, it will start reducing your safety score because it thinks you're going to hit them, and then it ups your premiums like significantly.
That's fucking stupid.
Really bad.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
I was saying like, haha, sort of jokingly, like I think that the newest car I would ever probably get is like maybe a 2020 model year car. But, like, the more I'm thinking about it, the more, like, actually, that might be it. Like, unless there's some, like, very cheap car that doesn't have connectivity to it. Because, like, that's, like, an absolute non-starter for me at that point.
And there's a distinction, too. Like, buying that model year car new versus buying it in, like, 6-7 years and people have reverse engineered and been able to wheedle that out.
But, like, the thing is like, there's just so much, like over-the-air updates. That's another thing that's a non-starter for me. So, like, over-the-air updates and, like, sending your metadata to insurance companies. Those are two absolute non-starters for me buying a car. So I think if I'm going to be buying a car in the future, it's either going to be like, if I'm making like $1 billion a year, I'm still going to be driving like a Mirage or something. Because I'll be the most reasonable, like affordable, functional vehicle
that doesn't have a SIM card.
That doesn't send information to my insurance provider, or like actually, like really actually considering just a developing world car. Like go to Mexico, buy a property of sorts and register it there, and then drive your Suzuki Swift.
Didn't we talk about, was it Tata or was it some other auto manufacturer where they had started up like a US website to like potentially launch cars?
Yes.
And they had brand new awesome looking stuff with no infotainment at all.
Yes, it was. I believe that was Tata.
I think it was Tata. But like more of that, please.
Yeah.
Because like I would so much rather just use my phone when I'm park charging to watch content and not have my car have this extremely huge, very problematically aging, going to fail screen that controls the entire car and is now selling my data.
Yeah, I absolutely don't want that. Like
I don't want that.
We were going through, you're kind of like haha laughing at all the ridiculous like Amazon add-ons on those Tatas, and like you can get like everything. You can get everything from like
I'm gonna want the humidifier.
Yeah, you can get everything from a humidifier to like a Ganesh statue. Like honestly, real life. I am interested in that. I would rather have that than have a car that sells my data.
Exactly, because I can buy a mount.
Yeah.
And then just use my device, which I can regulate.
Yeah, whatever the hell that I want to do, I can probably do on my phone. Mm-hmm. I can probably connect it to something.
Yes.
Or stick it on something. I don't need it to be. I don't want that big dumb screen.
I don't either, because that'll also be broken and completely out of date in 2 years.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And like, I know there's to be the aftermarket like comes in, saves the day, and keeps these cars on the road. But like, also, I don't want to have to deal with that. Like, I just want the functioning thing.
Yeah.
Like, I just want a car that works. I don't care how shitty it is. I just want it to work. I want to be able to enjoy it. I want to be able to drive it like a dickhead and not have Big Brother tell my insurance agent. Like, it's just insane to me that people are still buying these cars like in great numbers and going, this sounds great. Like, no, it's actually really bad in every way.
I want to know the percentage of actual drivers that we cohabitate the roads with here in this country that benefit rates-wise from having one of those snapshot devices. And I bet it's none.
None. Zero. And
everyone sucks ass at
It's
driving.
not meant to benefit you. It's nothing. Anything a corporation ever does is not made to your benefit.
Correct. And if
sometimes you do benefit, yeah. But at the end of the day, the final thing that the final person that gives the okay to anything being made in our like late stage capitalism 2024 America is a bean counter that's going, is this good for the company? Like, you know, that big
banner
dumb banner in Office Space, is this good for the company? That's like the very last like checkbox that the guy has to click before he signs off on everything. So
because at the end of the day, it's a car manufacturer, and they are not in the business of making cars. They are in the business of making money.
Yeah.
And if they're getting a kickback from the insurance companies, which they are,
absolutely,
this sort of thing I'm only okay with if I am being paid directly for my data, and it does not affect my insurance premiums. And that basically doesn't exist.
No, it absolutely does not exist.
So
and,
I'm just going to go ahead and say no thank you.
Yep.
And that's where I'm gonna go ahead and leave that.
Yeah, I don't want any of that information, any of that in my car. Absolutely not.
I want to quick go back to the whole hypercar thing because I was scrolling through available topics today, and I'm like, this is very interesting that just happened to be published a couple days ago. Because
what in the hell is that?
So
you know all about this.
I do. I actually looked this up beforehand, and the Autopians who actually published this article, and I read through the whole thing, and they're just hazing these owners in forum posts, like poor broken grammar, asking with like terrible pictures what these buttons are. So in an early Murcielago 02 to 04, next to either the E-gear buttons or the shifter, there are 2 arrow keys, an auto button, and then there's a readout of 4 numerical numbers, an error, and an auto button. Okay, this is not just on the E-gear cars. This is also on the 6-speeds. So you see an LED that's flashing auto, and you think, well, that has to do with the transmission, right? No, I had to look this up too.
What does it do?
It controls the 6 Coney shock absorbers on the car, and it controls firmness. That's all it does.
That is not intuitive.
Not at all. It doesn't say anything about suspension. There's no image of a shock. There's no indicator on there.
You know, bless Lamborghini for that.
That's how you know this was a Diablo-era car. That wasn't done by Audi.
Yeah, no, Audi would have absolutely clearly labeled that.
That was done by the old men banging hammers onto the fiberglass tubs of the Murcielago as they were resentfully finishing the Diablo production. Because again, I had to search that because I couldn't figure it out. It's even tied via a trim piece to the shifter gate.
Like that clearly is part of the shifter.
Right, it's clear. Like, okay, it must relate to the powertrain of the transmission.
Up here at the top, that's where you have your traction control and shit like that.
The fold mirror buttons where the suspension thing is on a Ferrari.
Yeah, and like where it would you by like proximity association would put it.
Yeah, like chassis control stuff up front, transmission-y stuff.
Also, this is an era of Lamborghini where they would totally just have the automatic transmission buttons that just don't do anything, and they just let it flash a red LED at you because you have a manual, because they are not going to actually redesign anything.
Oh, of course not. No, like reusing switchgear and buttons, that's
I would absolutely assume that's for an automatic transmission that's not in the car.
What I first thought before I Googled this, and I assumed blindly for some time, was it controlled the nose lift on the car, because it does have a hydraulic nose lift.
Yeah, that would make sense too.
Mm-hmm. But nope, it's the shocks. It's just the shock damping.
That's hilarious.
So, anyway, that's
incredible.
This happened to pop up, and I'm like, aha, I have Googled this, and I read through, and I got progressively more embarrassed because I had to Google it.
This is why the Murcielago is a supercar and not a hypercar.
Yeah,
it's like
fair.
A hypercar would have ironed this shit out. But like, no, this is much better. Like, absolutely, this is fantastic.
Also, the seats are awful, but...
So, I have a question.
Sure.
Did all of the new crossovers this week get passing crash test ratings?
So the button thing we talked about were automatic like failures from hidden... I'm going to guess no, just because we talked about crash tests failing because of badly implemented touchscreens.
So you're correct, but not because of that.
Oh, okay.
This one just failed
Oh my God.
because it's poorly designed.
I see. And what is this?
It's a Citroen EC3.
Oh.
Made in India, actually.
Okay.
Fun fact. Because I love Indian automotive news. These are cars I like. And you're all going to have to deal with that. And so it scored 20.86 points out of 34 in adult occupant protection, which is...
That doesn't sound that bad.
No, but once you account for children, it gets a lot worse.
Oh,
yeah. A 1-star rating for child occupant and 0-star for adult. Yeah. Yeah. And if you go, that doesn't look that bad. It looks like the car crumpled as
right.
you would expect.
It looks like
to.
I could still open the door potentially, right?
Yeah, and like you can the door's not inside of your body.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm into that.
But if you scroll down, you can see here where they've kind of failed here. The pour is where the things are red and orange, and you can see that the chests are terrible. The legs for the driver are terrible. The head for the driver is terrible. However, it does. I mean, you could probably roll it down a hill and be fine, but any sort of like getting hit by an object would be bad.
So yeah, you're gonna have your legs are gonna be in poorly condition. You're probably gonna have a broken chest, but your head will
Sometimes
probably
be okay.
maybe. But unless you have a side movable, deformable barrier, in which case your head is poorly.
Yeah, then your head is
weak.
As
Actually,
noted, yes, weak. It's not quite poorly. However, if you scroll down a bit more, they'll actually give you the video of it.
Oh.
And you'll see why they failed. You might want to mute it.
Yep.
And then you'll see here. No, that's fine. You saw that there was the little incident here. So yep. Okay.
Okay, that actually looked okay.
Yep, that's pretty okay. Now, if we scroll, let's watch this. You see that the window on the driver's side points upwards. It breaks the track in the window. So the sharp corner of the window on the driver's side points upwards. This is the passenger side. But you're also going to see they'll do a in-car view of the child occupants. Watch this one.
Oh. So the child completely rolls over to the side.
The rear-facing car seat rotates 90 degrees and hits the kid in every direction. And
it runs one kid's head into the other car seat.
Yes. It's so bad.
But yeah, people with young children don't buy cross.
Oh no, they do.
Oh,
and
that's all that buys those.
Often they buy them because they're crossovers and ergo more safe.
So is this better or worse than the HRV?
This is worse.
Oh boy,
I think. Yeah, no, this is worse because in India, NCAP crash tests at a lower speed.
Oh, okay. I mean, it did look like the entire rocker panel stayed on the vehicle.
It did, yes, but I mean, they also didn't crash test it. I think we crash tested with a heavier load and at like 65 miles an hour as opposed to 55.
We are heavier loads here in
but
this country.
I think it's the difference between NCAP and NHTSA's. NHTSA is a higher speed and heavier vehicle.
Oh, okay.
And that's why the HRV detached. But this one failed spectacularly at normal speed with a normal barrier.
I was hoping it failed because of too many buttons.
No, it just failed because it's bad.
So if you want your kids to get much more closely acquainted during a collision, maybe look into the new EC3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, that's a bad vehicle. So
I wasn't going to buy one of those, and I still won't, but...
This is a prime example of if your friend goes, I bought this crossover because it's bigger and more safe. No, it's not. Not inherently. You need to go read the test because they were cars. A Smart has a better crash test rating than an F-150 the same year.
I remember, I think it must
Every
have been
generation.
around the 4.2, but like NHTSA did a crash test video where they had like an 08 Malibu, a Smart 4.2, and like a 1963
59 Impala.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Terrifying how awful the safety is on that big, heavy, safe car.
Yeah, but like even if you look at cars of the same year, like trucks have a lower standard for crash test safety.
Yeah.
And that's why they get 5 stars all the time.
We need to
No, that trucks and cars should be tested at the exact same.
I agree.
Yeah.
We need to unscrew that stupid rule.
Because that makes people...
Tax them the same, crash them the same.
Yeah. Like, that is... Especially back then when, like, the 4.2 came out. Like, the F-150 like was abysmal for its crash test rating, and they didn't care back then because it was a work truck.
And the star ratings have changed a bunch
Yes.
of times, but like the first really huge one after 1997 was 2012.
Yes,
And that's the year the Smart 4.2 came here.
That's also the year that they fucked up the whole front end of the car too, of like cars as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the 2013 Outback looks as awful as it does.
Oh yeah, because they had to like staple. That's why the U.S. market Fiat 500 was jacked up so
Yeah.
much in the back. All the tons
Yeah.
of terrible crap. But anyway, yeah, that's back in the day when the F-150 was getting 1.5 star safety ratings because the tests where you're crashing into the same immovable concrete block. It shows quite clearly that your safety design is a 1960s pickup with some airbags in it.
Yeah, and that's literally what they're making. And people are saying, I got this big truck, so it's
Yeah,
going
I'm
to
safe.
it's going to obliterate that little football of a smart car. I'm like, that football of a smart car, that's going to have a bunch of small impacts that don't have the same inertia as one big one. No, I'll take the smart car any day in a car accident over an old truck.
Yeah, because it's able to dissipate its energy and move you around, causing less damage to you.
Also, it is designed to maintain its integrity, and it will survive the crash, absolutely.
The first gen Smart 4.2, especially considering that came out in like 99 in Europe,
Yeah.
is insanely safe.
You know, I saw a Smart the other day driving at great speed, and I'm
so proud.
I know. I kind of, if I ever find like a cheap Brabus Smart that I can afford, I'm going to buy it.
A second gen for 2 with an actual transmission. That was my biggest issue with the first
I
gen.
will. The thing is, I want the look of the first gen.
Oh, okay.
The second gen's. It doesn't do anything for me. The first gen did it though.
Has anyone, I assume they have, but has anyone for the first gen for 2 just made like shifter cables and crap for that trans? Because obviously
idea.
it's a manual.
Yeah, it's just a manual with that.
I would assume that somebody
Shifter.
has. That would actually make that a pretty good car.
Yeah, no, I frankly, well, that's the thing is, I was actually kind of looking for a car that was, fun to drive, small, and also something that Jana can drive because she's got her anxiety issues.
Well, and it has to fit in your driveway.
It has to be very small. So actually, a Brabus Smart checks all of those boxes, and it's hilarious.
Love those little teeny monoblock 6s too.
Yeah,
They're so
like
cute.
that would be really cool. I think a Brabus Smart would be something that could end up in my driveway at some point.
And the likelihood of you actually finding one of those in reasonable condition with a bad trans is fairly high.
I can just get a transmission.
Well, I know, but like the Brabus one obviously got cared for
Yeah.
more than the average, just like car to, what was that car sharing?
Car
service
to go.
that- Car to
Or
go.
EV, I think is what it's called now.
Yeah. I
Our
assume
car.
it's-
Our car.
Thank you. Our car. But it's very obvious when you see one of those because
Yes.
it's the only ones in the States with the steel wheels on it still. But anyway, a Brabus one is going to be well taken care of.
Yeah, I
And
think a Brabus Smart would be very. It's also just like it fits my ethos of just like I want a goofy car. Like I
yeah.
want a goofy, fun car, and that's like pretty much a Fiat, like a Barth on crack. Like it is
just a slow one, but yes.
yeah. Well, no, I mean like it does everything a Fiat, a Barth does, but even more extreme. Like it's more stupid. It's more unnecessary. Even fewer people had asked for it, and it's still here.
It's worse, therefore it's better.
Yeah, exactly. I think a Brabus Smart is gonna be up there, especially if I get a ragtop Brabus Smart, that'd be even like just the absolute peak of smart.
How much those cost new is mind-boggling. And
They're-
people still bought them.
It was so silly, and they exist, and I'm here for it because I will absolutely buy those completely depreciated.
And it's one of the few like interesting small cars we ever got here in the States. I mean, let's be real about that.
Yeah, no,
the fact that Smart came here at all.
No, yeah, it's a miracle it came here, and I was very excited for them to come here, and they're actually fun to drive. I enjoy driving them. Like Miguel had a bunch of them, and I really enjoyed them.
Yeah,
The
I
only
test drove
reason
one
I
new, it was
didn't,
great.
the only reason I didn't get one when I was younger is like the only dude I ever saw with a Smart was that really cursed dude. Like, God, he has like a bunch of Kias now.
Oh,
and
I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember his name.
Oh, he had a Smart.
Yeah, he had a bunch of Smarts. That's why I didn't buy them when we were in high school.
There's an old dude on my street with a blue top spec
I do
rag
remember
top,
that. Yes.
and he had the Pagoda,
Yes.
and he had the old Rolls.
3-car solution.
Amazing.
That is-
But he loved that Smart, and he drove it till the day he died.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. No, that's. I think Taylor Fingers really have been like kind of like turning me on to like the 2000s era of design, which I don't really care about. But like the more I look into them and like some of the cool designs, like the Smart's definitely up there. I think like why I didn't like that 2000s era of car designs. I've always been like very into Japanese cars, not Euros. And like the 2000s was a very bad time for Japanese cars. because that was like they were trying to string along their 90s cars, but like they had no money to continue doing that.
I was going to say, that's like a very big indicator of their economy just previous to that state and time.
And like Europe was like thriving because the Soviet Union had just fallen. And like you had 10 years of getting shit better. And then 2000s is when they were on fire.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they dragged the rest of us along. I mean, even helped the States quite a bit.
And I was like, I was watching Big Car on YouTube, which is actually a wonderful YouTube channel about cars.
Big Car?
Big Car, yes. He usually talks about tiny cars.
God damn it.
I was watching a video on like the Audi TT, and I'm like, damn, I kind of want a TT now. Like,
I will say, you think about cars that were made in the late 90s that still kind of look modern. Like, the TT's way up there.
I don't even want them to look modern. I just want them to look like cars that are of the era and cars that have like inspired design. Like, I don't want anything to look modern because there's nothing modern that I like. But something that's like an inspired design, like the Audi TT, the OG, like the R50 Mini, the Smart, like those are really inspired good designs. Like the Twingo, obviously, like those are just like great designs of that era. And then like going into the 2000s, you had like the Renault designs, like the Megane and the your favorite
the
Aventime. Yeah, your favorite vehicle ever. And like even I think it's like the C1, which is like their giant one. What was their, not the C1, that was their tiny one, C6, I think.
The big sedan?
Yeah, I'm thinking of Citroen.
Yeah, Citroen C6 was the big sedan with they still had like the hydropneumatic suspension.
Yes, and they had the big dumb window in the back. Yeah. Like they had silly cars that still existed. The Citroen C6, very good car.
The C6 actually I think looked pretty good too.
Yeah, quite good.
I'm sure it was awful. Because like that wasn't a great reliability era for the French cars, mainly because of the Nissan underpinnings.
Yeah.
The Japanese underpinnings. We come back to Japan having a problem in that era.
Japan had a problem. They were trying to mix like something that was very, very good for their specific application with an application which it didn't quite work in.
Correct.
Yes.
It's a very French solution to a problem.
But anyway,
all right.
Let's talk about other things that are interesting and small, I assume.
So I have found an American automaker that is now going to produce a very small electric pickup truck that would
that's
fit
exactly
in your
what I
driveway.
Want. That's what I want.
Unfortunately, Ryan, I have bad news. Even though this is a Ford,
I'm not going to get it.
Guess where this American car is not sold?
Oh, here obviously.
Yeah,
how about Mexico?
Well, it probably will be sold in Mexico, so you might still be able to do the workaround.
Yes, I can do it.
But even though I've already given you the bad news, I'm just trying to break this to you as quickly as I can. It is still intended to be a sub $25,000 EV.
Very good.
All in, before tax credits and all of that. It will have a fairly sizable, actually, lithium iron phosphate battery, and it is definitely not destined for your driveway. This, however, is also sold in a less good SUV variant, but that has a television in the back.
Like just one big one?
It
does have one big one.
It does have one big one in the back.
If you scroll down, they have a photo of it.
I know. It is in the what do you call it, article? That's the one.
Yes.
The Morning Dump has info on this. Also, that kind of reminds me of a little Aztec. However, there is this one. If you scroll even further down, the wheel and tire package on this concept pickup looks just like a concept car from Ford in the mid-90s.
Yeah, no, that looks just like a 90s
so
concept.
I think that might actually just be the same wheel and tire that they just took off of a different concept and bolted onto this 30-year newer concept because cost savings.
This also looks like a concept car from like 2002.
It does.
Like this does not look like a modern
No,
concept.
it's a glass door with like no room for the wiring to go up into the big light-up push handle, but it is a teeny little pickup that would fit in your driveway, and it is made by Ford Motor Company.
Very cute.
So, I mean, come on.
It's cute. I like it. I'm here for it. That looks like something I'd want to own.
Where are small cars here, please?
Yes, I would like that. Eric had a stroke saying that, but I do agree. I would like that.
It has been, already a day.
There was somebody at work that posted a Mighty Boy. That's what it was called.
Oh, yes.
That posted a Mighty Boy at work, and I mentioned like how badly I wanted a Mighty Boy. I'm like, this is kind of just a perfect replacement for my Fiat. It's just really old.
That's why the Wagon RRR makes more sense.
Yes, that actually. Fun fact: Marcello Gandini actually had one.
Oh, of course he did.
Yeah, he loved K cars. He like drove K cars until he died. After he discovered them, like he's like, no, these are perfect. And he actually said, he was quoted as saying that anybody can design a great big car, but it takes actual skill to design a great small car.
And Gandini was famous as an external designer
Yeah.
for not really working on projects outside of the Miura that didn't have a full envelope engineering plan behind them.
Yes.
Because he hated cars that looked good and were badly engineered.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the thing. That's the worst. Like, I hate that. So I actually want to talk about cars that are well engineered and good. Miatas, right?
Hell yeah.
And Miatas have one very cursed problem, and that very cursed problem is trying to find a good 14-inch tire.
Oh, yeah.
You are stuck with,
E30, same problem.
yep, Chinese ching chong bing bong.
Yep.
Like Ling
Hai
Lang-
Run, Ling
Long.
Lang.
Ling Long, that's the name.
Hai
It was
Run-
Ling Long. I was trying to remember the name. I could not remember the name. But Ling Long tires, like that's what you're getting. Like that's actually the best available tire for a
I went through
Miata.
all those booths at SEMA. That entire
Yes.
building full of the Chinese tire
And
suppliers.
so I love that because they have the best merch. I got a calculator from Green Max. It's very good. It's a clear calculator and it's solar powered. It's super cool.
Oh, my God.
But anyway, no, you're stuck with like you could get the repop Bridgestone tires or the factory tires from like 1990.
Barham's?
Yeah, no, they actually make Bridgestone makes the tire.
Oh, well, Bridgestone makes Barham, too. I thought those were just
No
old designs.
No, that they actually brought it back
Oh, that's
for
kinda cool.
Miatas, but it's hideously expensive.
Sure.
However, there is a company that now makes a 15-inch version of the Daisy wheel they're called RMLs. The company, and that is a Mazda Miata Daisy.
That is
but
indeed.
It is a 15-inch wheel.
Well, that's nice.
Yep. Also, it's painted on their logo, so you can just make the Mazda the logo and make them look just like Mazda wheels.
Perfect.
They are immediately sold out.
Oh, of course.
But-
Which is good, actually. That means that they will make more, right?
Yes, there is. They made 600 of them, 150 sets, and they sold out instantly. They were $269 a pop, and pre-orders sold out
That's shockingly
within
reasonable.
like a couple of days.
It's like
Yeah,
$1,000 for a set of brand new, bigger OE style wheels that
That's-
let you run good tires.
269 is like right on the money for like that's you can get like 1552s for about that. You can get any sort of Inky you want. Like those are all kind of that 259 like sub $300 per wheel.
Right.
And so yeah, that's a really cool wheel, and I hope that they make more because
That's a really good
Man.
idea for a lot of. I mean, there are a lot of very popular cars like early Civics, E30s. I mentioned like there's a lot of cars that are pretty fun to drive, and you want a good quality tire moving forward. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
I'm very here for that because that's actually that repop Bridgestone tire that they showed on Japanese nostalgia car there. But like, I would just want like a modern good tire on my car, and then like that 15-incher will also allow you to like put on like a little bit bigger brake if you're going to like autocross, but you don't want to have like a really crazy look on the car. You want it to look like more or less stock. Like that's perfect. That's exactly what you need, and it's like. The Miata Daisy wheel is actually a pretty good wheel for
and
that
it fits
era.
that design.
It fits
so
the car so
perfectly.
well, and there are so many cars that have RPF ones on them solely for the purpose of being able to fit a better tire on them. That should not have a different wheel on it. Like the RPF one exists for being the best, cheapest wheel to stick a tire on.
It is a vessel?
It's a vessel to give you a better tire.
Mount a better tire onto a fun
and
car.
now you can have a good-looking vessel that looks like a factory wheel.
A factory vessel.
Yeah, a factory vessel. Like this is actually something to aspire.
We're calling
towards.
this episode Factory Vessel.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then if you actually look, it's just like
1 sec.
the offset. It's like just a little bit more deep set as well.
Yeah,
So
I actually noticed that the lip is a little bit bigger.
just a little bit, but not enough to be a problem. But it, I really like that a lot. I like that stepped and everything. Like that's just a really, really good looking wheel. 10 out of 10 on that. And I
Please
wanted to.
do more for other cars.
Yeah, like this needs to like. I would absolutely love to have some CRX buttons that are 15s.
And if these guys came out with, I mean, so I keep coming back to E30s because that's what I know. But anyway,
Yeah.
US IS cars came with a 14-inch basket weave style BBS wheel.
Yes.
In Europe, you could get a 15-inch called the Euro Weave. Whoa.
Yes.
And those had a little bit thicker lip on them too. But right now, the closest cost-effective option you have is to buy a Borbit Type A. Or
Which
something.
is, yeah.
It's a great wheel. Looks very similar.
But not.
Very expensive. Have to come from Europe. If a company like this that has the tooling and the equipment to make that wheel
These
at a
are-
cost-effective price,
These
even
are
if
probably
it's
made in China, but you know what else is made in China? Factory wheels on cars.
Everything.
Like every road there's double XR.
XR,
yeah. They got their start making factory wheels for Mopar.
Oh, what era?
80s and 90s.
Okay.
And then they started making aftermarket wheels when like the Fast and Furious craze got big.
Okay.
And then that's where they came from. Rhoda was very similar as well. Rhoda made factory wheels. I can't remember for who, but they used to make factory wheels and they started making replicas. And like so those brands that make the
I guess
knockoff
Renault
wheels
too. Yeah, actually.
yeah, that's where they came from. Is they were just Asian brands that were making the equivalent of a Ronald or like a random BBS.
Enki did that too, did they not?
Yeah, Enki does a lot for.
They do a lot of OE wheels.
all over the place.
Yeah.
Racing Heart did OE wheels.
Speedline did 'em.
Speedline did a ton of OE wheels.
I think I have several sets of those.
Oh yeah, if you have a European car, there's a high likelihood that you are a Speedline owner.
Yeah.
Like if it's not clearly a BBS, you're likely a Speedline owner.
Renault, BBS, and Speedline.
They pretty much made everything. Yeah,
That's a big Dutch rudder of We Make Your Wheels.
yeah. So that's pretty much it. And it's like, so if this is made in China, like I don't really care. Like if I'm spending, if I'm spending $2,000-$3,000 on wheels,
Yeah.
yes, I'm gonna want something that's made by like a bespoke factory that actually has like a pedigree behind them. But if it's like, I want a slightly better OE wheel, that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. I'm not gonna complain.
To your point, like the wheels that are on your car right now, brand new, were probably made in China.
Yeah.
Your tires probably were too at this point, frankly.
Yes, your tire. Well, actually, your tires were probably made in Indonesia. Indonesia, weirdly enough, has like one of the biggest tire manufacturing, like per GDP, like
I'm sure
companies.
there's a good
in the
reason
world.
for it.
Yeah, it's just if all of the quote unquote Chinese tires that you see are actually usually Indonesian or Malaysian.
Well, that's actually, I kind of like that more.
That's very interesting. So
Most of my tires are French or German, Continental and Michelin. So
I don't like Continentals.
they've gotten a lot better. I have not, anyway, I've not had a problem with them on the Lamborghini, the Rolls, Mr. Wags, the Z8. They've been pretty good.
Yeah, that's fair. They don't. And Michelin's crack too. They prematurely crack. That's the thing that gets me.
I don't
My
like.
two issues with those two brands is like
You have to
Continental.
know which era, and like, there's no way to know ahead of time when you buy
Yeah.
these tires, especially when they're a new model. Because yeah, to your point, some of them are really bad. The mid 2000s Pilot Sport AS, straight trash. They're chunked and cracked immediately.
Yep.
But like the first Pilot Sport without the with asymmetrical tread,
Yes.
like 2010,
Yeah.
those you could still have a set. The front tires on the 1M are original.
Even today, like modern Michelin Defenders will crack
But like
sometimes.
first gen
Yeah.
Pilot Sports didn't.
Yeah, but so and that's the thing. It's like
you
when
just never
when
know.
you get to like Continental, it's like my issue with Continental is that they're a little too hard for what I've for or the lack of traction I've noticed on them.
Okay.
Like the Fiat when I first got those tires, they were like pretty fresh, and they were like everyone's like, oh yeah, those are great tires. Like they're not.
They're a lot better than the Pirellis that came on the Abarth.
Well, yeah,
but they're
okay,
not
but
great.
like
right, I know that's not a high bar.
yeah, that's like saying yeah, this carburetor is so much better than a thermoquad. Like okay.
Thermoquad.
Like, cool.
The only
There's a-
carburetor that punishes you for going wide open.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are better than a thermoquad. One of them is being on fire. Like, it doesn't mean it's a good thing to be better than that. It's like saying, oh, this person's become a better person. Well, yeah, if that person's Hitler, they can become a better person and still have a lot way to go. Like,
They only murdered 400,000 people this year.
like, so the thing is just Continental's never. I've never.
Sorry.
Yeah, coming back to Continental, like going all the way back to my tires and like.
Is it
things
'cause
like,
they're German?
no, it's just that. Well, that's part of it, but I'm not. I don't factor that in.
Okay.
But the thing is like I've never been in a car that has Continental tires on it, where the value of the tire matches the quality of
That's
what you're
fair.
getting. 'Cause either you have like insane road noise, or you have poor traction,
Or the flat spot.
or they flat spot, or like in my case in the Fiat, they're perfectly fine on like warm summer days.
Yeah.
But if there's any sort of moisture on the ground or dew
I had
or
those
anything,
same tires on my sports, and they were good when they were new, but as soon as they started wearing even like 25% down, they became really bad.
yeah, and that's the thing is like they were like good for like the first summer I had the Fiat,
Yep.
and then kind of after that they're just like terrible in winter, absolutely garbage in winter. Like I see why everybody says don't have all seasons. because I've spoiled myself with like Sumitomos for like the last 10 years.
Well, and just a brand new name brand all season when it is brand new is passable in the winter. But like, yes, how they wear after 10, 15,000 miles is a really big metric that I think needs to be shared more.
Yeah, and I think like that's where I fall into like I'm a really big stand for like Falcon Sumitomo, as we all know. Yokohama, I've had good experiences with.
I've had great luck with Toyo.
Yeah, and Toyo's fantastic. Like,
I
that's what I was gonna
really
say.
like Toyo
I
tires.
just say like the Asian brands of tires I actually get the most out of. Bridgestone is an exception.
Hit or miss. I
they're
like them. Their designs are very old.
Yes,
but they're pretty well vetted.
Yeah, but like that's the thing. Like they're kind of like Bridgestone is more along the lines of the Continental, and Michelin thing, but
they're the same price as Continentals, older design, but probably more reliable.
I will say Michelin's very, very good for cars like the Lexus. If you want just comfy road-going car and you don't care about what it does, it makes a great car for your mom, or a great tire for your mom.
They also do not flat spot. Michelin's are
yeah.
amazing for that. So if you don't drive your cars regularly, buy the Michelins.
And if you don't drive them in anger ever. Like if you,
I would never do
if
that.
you have
Snapshot.
a C5 Corvette, it's a high likelihood. There's a very high likelihood that you should probably have Michelin's on your C5 Corvette.
Oh yeah, once a year driven to the golf.
Yeah,
place.
and that's it. Yeah, that's
Whatever
all
they
you're
call
doing.
those, the golf place.
So anyway, we will see you next week.
Bye guys.